partner organization, the Social and Economic Rights Action Center, that has been working with the community for several years, also confirmed that no such action was carried out by the Lagos State government.
So to a large extent then, all of what you're depending on are the words of the residents who feel seriously aggrieved by the action of the government.
No, during our research, we did meet with a number of government officials. Apart from meeting with the residents, we met with the Lagos State Attorney General and Commissioner for Justice. We met with the Commissioner for Housing. We met with the chairman of the Lagos State Task Force on Environmental and Special Offences Unit. We also met with officials of the LMDGP and the World Bank. So we did meet with several people during the course of our research to corroborate the information we got beforehand.
So for the sake of this program, then what's the summation of the report? If you want to summarize the report in one or two sentences, what does it say? Does it make an allegation that the government acted in error and is unfair? Or was it a case of there are errors of judgment? What is it? If you summarize for us, what was the core content of your report?
We found out that on the 23rd of February, the Lagos State government demolished at least 266 structures. And before demolishing the structures, the government failed to provide the affected people with reasonable and adequate notice. They failed to genuinely consult with the affected people, failed to provide legal remedies, failed to provide alternative adequate accommodation, and failed to provide compensation for losses in line with international laws and standards. Nigeria is obliged under a range of international human rights treaties to respect the right to adequate housing, which includes a prohibition on forced evictions.
Okay, we'll come back to. Or you wanted to ask?
Just before we leave you for now, you have used the words "right to adequate housing." From what we have read, the area we're talking about, the housing there, cannot be described as adequate, can it? Because we hear that the houses were built on a place that used to be a refuse dump, and the conditions were unsanitary, and the buildings were not approved, and it was just altogether unhealthy.
A home is a home, irrespective of whether it's as nice as houses you would find in Victoria Garden City. The right to adequate housing has got two elements to it. One is the immediate obligation by state parties to stop forced evictions. And may I emphasize the fact that forced eviction has been defined by the UN Committee on Economic and Social Cultural Rights as the permanent or temporary removal of persons, individuals, communities, and families against their will, from the homes and the lands they occupy, without putting legal and procedural safeguards in place. The other element of the right to adequate housing is the progressive realization of the right to adequate housing. This means the putting in place of laws, of policies, of programs that allow people to access adequate housing. For example, like providing low-cost housing and granting people security of tenure when they do not have one.
Okay. Thank you. We'll come back to you, Mr. Popola.
Okay, now let's ask. Amnesty International representative in Nigeria, Oluwatosin Popola, said they met with you as one of the people that they consulted with and discussed. And part of the allegation is that the state government failed to consult extensively with the people before the action was taken and failed to inform them that this action will be taken on due date, and failed to make preparation of provision for them to be rehoused. How true can this be, looking at it from the eyes of the Commissioner for Justice and Attorney General of Lagos State?
Well, thank you very much. They did meet with me, and I gave them facts which refuted those allegations. But I think to put things in the proper perspective, it's important for us to know exactly what was the condition in this area that we are talking about. First, we need to distinguish the area we are discussing now from the entire Badia community, which is a slum area. Admittedly, it's a slum area. And Lagos State government has taken, steps to upgrade that slum. There are certain projects going on there. But the area that we are talking about now is a 10-hectare area. It was a swamp. Okay, it was not inhabited. Then people came in that started to fill it up with refuse. So it grew into a refuse dump. As far back as 2003, this same area was cleared. The people that were trying to set up community there were notified and the entire place cleared because we had certain projects in mind to do at the time. But before any project could start, the refuse dump usage grew and people started using it for scavenging, setting up small temporary structures there, largely wooden structure. And then a lot of people were also using it for storage of things from the port, I think leftover pallets and things like that, filled up the area. Now, the state governor had been there at least twice, 2008, 2012. October, the last one was in October 2012. We met with these communities. He went in the company of members of the Executive Council. We made it clear that it was not permissible for people to build so-called homes on refuse. And this was actually what was there. There is no question of solid waste disposal. There's no question of proper drainage. And that was the situation in that community, if we might call it a community. And it became a big problem because we have a drainage going on there, a drainage infrastructure. And the rains come, refuse from this community, all the waste swept into the drains, and then blocking the drains and causing all sorts of flooding for the surrounding communities. And then the health issues, we just couldn't close our eyes to those. The place was clearly unsanitary. And there you had adults and children doing all sorts of things there. Then it got to a point it was largely taken over by criminals. Criminals, foraging to the neighboring communities were usually traced back to this place. Government had to do something. And then after the governor's visit, the two visits I referred to were to tell them that government will not permit a community to spring up here, that you have to leave. And then thereafter, there were consultations with the traditional...
The governor visited
the governor visited twice. And then thereafter, there were other consultations.
Are there documentary evidence?
Oh, they are. And it was acknowledged by some of the residents, actually. They claim, and they might say that, they were never notified, that they had to leave, Okay. But I wonder what they were told. But all my records showed that they were. And then, yes, you will not expect those crosses and those processes that we use. For instance, if you want to demolish a building. These were not really buildings in that sense of the word. Number one, they didn't have title to the place. They didn't have permit to build. So it was a notice of abatement of nuisance that was given. Okay. Now,
Mr. Ipaye, let me just take you back a little bit. We understand that most of those in that area are those who moved from where the present National Theatre is. Yeah. So it means that their land, their abode at that present, at the site where the National Theatre is,